Hey everybody, thanks again for checking out another stream. This is week 39. So 39 weeks straight I've been working on this, building my OS in the browser. It's the title of this one, Coding an Operating System with JavaScript. Yeah, that pretty much sums up what I'm doing here. Been doing it for a good chunk of, like 39 weeks. It's not the first time I've done this kind of thing. I've actually played around with another one in the past, but this is my most successful one so far. If you like this kind of idea, if you like my video, if you like my past videos, feel free to throw a like on this one as well. And if you want to keep following me, you want to motivate me, again, if you like me, throw me a subscribe because hey, why not? Then I've got you. We're latched on, and you can keep posted on all my videos and stuff. Uh, Powered by water today, no Red Bull. Unfortunately, another week of allergies. So I don't know what's going on. I actually didn't have allergies throughout the week, but again on Saturday I have allergies. So gonna be a bit sniffly this episode and might keep it a little shorter. We'll see how I feel. But yeah. Let's again, thanks for checking it out. Feel free to throw some messages in the chat, or if you're coming after the stream is over, throw me some comments. Anything's welcome. Question, comments, concerns, criticisms, critiques, which I guess is the same as a criticism. Not sure. Anyways, let's just jump right into the browser and take a quick peek at what we got going on right now. This is the current state of the app, of the OS. I'm actually happy. I did quite a few tweaks throughout the week that we're going to be able to check out. That's going to add some nice features. One being, if you see here when I drag icons, nothing happens. I'm going to add the ability to sort icons. I improved the renaming to look better. Currently, that's weird. Let me clear the cache here. It actually looks not how I would have expected it to look. Okay, that's weird. Let me try making a file with a longer name. Cookie whoop. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. So if it's more than one line, it has this little scroll bar thing, and just in general, it doesn't look like the Windows one. Like if it's just one line, you see how it's the full width, and when I type, there's no additional, the box doesn't increase in size. So we're gonna do some cool little wizardry to figure that one out. In the future, I'm going to use that for this truncation logic too. If you see here, this at a dot dot dot, I'm going to improve that dot 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 logic so that it knows exactly when to do the dot dot dots. And I know there is a CSS value called line clamp, but it has some limitations when it comes to shadows. So I've decided to do it through actually calculating the width of the text via a canvas. See, I got a message here from Green Coder. Do you do Node.js? I suppose I work with Node.js as well. I mean, the code here, I'm using Next.js, and this Yarn dev instance, this is running in Node right here, so Node's being used. But in general, it's a front-end app completely right now, and I'm actually pretty proud to keep it that way at the moment. I'm happy to try to do as much as possible on the front end to kind of surprise people about how much can be done on the front end too. And for that, it's just like, I mean, it compiles down to, I guess, ES6. I'm not doing ES5. I'm done with Internet Explorer 11. So it's ES6 form syntax JavaScript that it compiles down to. I write it in TypeScript using Next.js and React and styled components and that kind of thing, and some different libraries to do some of the animations in that. And a ton of different libraries and web assemblies for all sorts of other cool parts. What's another cool thing I'm going to do this episode? If you see the icons here in the title bar, we're going to get more dynamic with those. We're going to add a bunch of cool icons. Let's just get to it. Because, yeah, I got a video player. I'm going to add a video player this episode, including video thumbnails for the files, just like how we have picture thumbnails. I'll show you an example here of a picture one. Let me find a picture. Here's a picture of a wallpaper. I'll just drag it in from my computer. So you see here that the wallpaper has an image. If I refresh the page, you'll see for a second it's just a generic photo, and then it'll actually get the proper thumbnail. So you see there, it was generic icon for a second, and that's that one. And now we have an image viewer now. And today we're going to make a video viewer, and I'm going to base it on the Videoland VLC one, because that's the one I use personally. So we see here Videoland. It's not going to be literally using any Videoland pieces at the moment, although in the future it could, because there is like a VLC.js thing that they're working on, but you'd really have to turn a ton of experimental browser features on to get any real value out of it. So I'm just going to utilize the HTML5 video element for doing the video player, but I'm going to base the looks on how I see video VLC for the most part. Although I don't have it perfect yet. I'm working with the limitations of video.js for their styling, but I probably could make it a bit better. We'll see this episode what I've got so far. And on the note, as far as what I've got so far, as usual throughout the week, I've been working on my branch, and I have this branch here, episode 39. And I've got 37 commits, and we're going to go through them and check them out and see all the improvements that we've got this episode. So what's the first one? Toggle sort by order. What's that mean? So I had sort by here for doing name, size, type, and date. I've got rid of this little blank one. That one was unnecessary. The formatting here is a mess. It didn't really format this very well from a visual point of view looking at the diff. Let's just make a patch and apply the patch, and we'll go see the diff in VS Code so we can see what our first commit of the day. At some point I want to update the packages too, so I'll get to that. So for applying a patch, I do git apply. I find the path, which is users, my name, desktop, / whatever the heck the name of the patch was, ff something or other. There we go. So let's apply this first one and see what we change. So this one was a simple enough change. I just switched from a dispatch to just a generic function called set sort by, which takes the sort type and just returns nothing. Similar to dispatch, so let me just try to figure out why I changed it. Let's look at the diff here. So yeah, I got rid of the empty space there. Let me get rid of some of this stuff so we can see it better. I didn't like this piece of the type. This was to just clear it. I think I'm doing it a different way now. So I sort and then oh right, currently I don't have the ability to do reverse, like go from ascending to descending and flip it. I had that and I've actually lost that for this change. And I've just added it back to the board as like a to-do because this seemed cleaner in some ways. Although actually, that being said, this is actually the change where I added it. So I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I'm adding it here and then I remove it later. Yeah, that's an unfortunate part of some of these commits where I guess you get to see the thinking process too. So sorting as it was, here was how it was before. It would just sort the files. Let's test it out too, just to see if it works. Oop. So we got 4 files here. I'll go sort by name. That looks correct. Size, type, and modified. Modified seemed to be the same, or what happened there? Size, modified. Okay, something changed. So anyways, let's assume that worked like this, and I was clearing it at the end. Now what I've switched to is I've made a function here that instead of using the dispatch, passing it directly, I've made this function that can do reverse where it adds an exclamation mark to the string. I'm not a fan of this, which is one of the reasons why I got rid of this. But this was my idea to reverse it. It'd be like name would be it's in ascending order, and like exclamation mark name, it's in descending order. So that's what I did here. I like take the string and remove the one piece from it just to get what it was. And then yeah, it's just the same thing there. So that's literally all that happened here. So let's check out the change because now it's been applied. So if I do sort by name and then I do sort by name again, yeah, you see it inverts it. So now WebAmp's at the top. So that is kind of like how it is in Windows. So we are going to get back to doing that. And I am going to commit it right here just to kind of move things along. But I think I end up needing to get rid of it because it adds a little complexity to some of my future commits. But for now, that's the basics. So that was a simple enough one. Basically, instead of using dispatch and just directly saying name, size, type, date, I had this inverse idea. So it set name, and then if you set name again, it'll invert it and add an exclamation mark. So this is kind of a neat idea where I was playing with this type of types, where this template literal type. So it's basically the same 4 names, but with an exclamation mark. So that allowed me to make like these different types, kind of like a dynamic type, which I thought was fun. But at the same time, like I said, I think I get rid of this shortly. Anyways, let's just commit that one because it is kind of a neat feature. I want to have the ascending descending, but let's see if I keep it. We'll see if I can figure out a way to not remove it this time. Although I'm not, like I said, I'm not completely happy with that exclamation mark string modification. It's not an ideal way to keep track of what order you're in if you're ascending or descending to check a string. I'm not a fan of that. Let's jump right to the package updates, I think. Let me just double check if did I ever do them in this? No, I never did package updates. Maybe I'll just skip them. I don't have to do them every week. They usually break stuff, honestly. Yeah, let's not throw that monkey wrench in the mix. Let's just move on. Not optional window var. What's that mean? Okay, this is a minor one, but it allowed me to get rid of some tabs. Right, I was checking for this here, but really, if that has to be checked for, we're already in trouble. And in a lot of the other container apps, I'm not doing that. I'm just assuming, okay, the window object has this now. I've loaded this. So I'm just going to do the same. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm kind of moved on to the idea of just allowing things to fail for now. And I'm going to work on some better error handling in the future. Because honestly, I don't want to write a bunch of code to catch this case right now. It's just pointless. And let me just take a peek at the code so I can explain why it's pointless again, just to remind myself. What was this again? Not optional window var. Right, so for v86 here, yeah, I was checking if so you load where's load files here? Here we go. We load the files. Load files like basically starts up the library and should attach itself to the window object. So then it's expected that window.v86 starter will exist. So if I get this far and then this fails, I'm okay for that to fail. I would rather that, because the way this thing is now, it almost like fails quietly. So it's like, okay, this didn't exist, then what happens? It just goes away. That's it. Like you won't get an error, but I would rather have this go, that's not there, you know. I'd rather have that. So I need to do less of this checking for things, more typing to say it should be there. And if it's not there, in the future, I'm going to do some error handling where I'm going to start catching all errors, all unhandled errors, and I'm going to kind of channel that through almost like similar to what like Windows has for how it reports errors. So there'll be a way for the user to kind of know that there's errors occurring in a Windows-esque form. Hopefully. I mean, honestly, there aren't a lot of things that show up for Windows anymore. It used to be more. It used to be like, you remember the like, do you want to report this error? But now, at least personally, I almost never see those dialogues. Hopefully my users won't either, because that means that there's been some kind of problem. Okay, so that's another commit committed. We're committed on that commit now. So what's this? Dynamic shortcut icons. That sounds neat. Yes. What does this mean? What did I do here? If there's no icon. Oh, okay, right. So in the shortcuts, I was specifying the icons to what was already the app, basically. So like the file explorer also says it uses this icon. This way I just say, hey, if the icon wasn't specified, try to get it from the process directory. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that one too. That just makes the shortcuts simpler. And it's more like how Windows would work too. And that if their shortcut structure doesn't need to say, oh, the icon will be this. It knows, oh, I'll get the icon when I look at the file. Okay, that was simple enough. I think I add some more shortcut dynamicness to this in the future in regards to like a shortcut to a file having some dynamic visuals. Let's commit this anyways. This is a simple one. So in the get shortcut info, I just say if there's no icon, but we already know the process, then we'll set the icon as the process directory, process is icon. There we go. I'm happy with that one as well. What's the next here? Ability to load CSS files dynamically. Yeah, I think I end up needing this for the video player because the video thing I end up using in the end is called video.js. This is it here. Make your player yours with the world's most popular open source HTML5 player framework. So it's pretty legit. You go on GitHub, you see here it's got 32,000 stars. So some people believe in it, at least. That's a metric I like. This one's got its own kind of custom skin. I'll just play this here. You can see it's got its own little play bar and stuff. And we'll see what the default one looks like that I get. And I went through some of their stuff here that kind of explains how to do it all. This explains it all. We'll go back to this anyways. But first things first. So if you remember, there's that load files function here. And it has the ability to load a script. And I've decided to add the ability to load a style too. So if it ends in .css, is that how I want that? I'm going to tweak this slightly because I want it to cover, if it were SCSS, the browser wouldn't be able to load it anyways. So that's actually probably okay. Anyways, let's just apply this patch and I'll go over what I did here. What I did here. So this is 2.5. I'm going to copy the commit text because that's nice. So yeah, basically all I did is there was already this load files. Now I just check its extension name, and if it's CSS, I do the load style version instead of. So there was already this load script version that would make a script tag, put the source in, and then dump it into the document head. Now I do the same thing, but I had to modify it slightly. So I also checked to see if they're already loaded. Before with this one, I was doing it via document.scripts. Here I had to do a query selector all because there's no such thing as like document.link. I mean, there is, but there's one called like document.links, but it gives you the anchor tags, not the link, like this kind of link for loading a style sheet. Anyways, it acts pretty much the same. I could probably have generalized this a little bit, but it's just different enough in respects where it wasn't quite worth it. So I decided to leave it be. And it's really just those two cases, a script or a style. Those are the only two things I could imagine ever needing to load for files. And so far it's covering my use cases. So we're going to add that. I'm going to need that in a minute when I load the video.js one. Library, that is. So that's those 4 done. Let's next. Dynamic icons for shortcut URLs. Right. So if we go back here and I were to, let's go into this folder here. So for Linux, I create shortcut. But what does that mean? Oh, maybe here. What if no, I can't create a shortcut of that. I'm trying to think of a good way to test this. I know it's testable. Ah, for pictures. Pictures are good examples. So let me copy that same picture again. Here we go. So for the picture here, if I make a shortcut of this, create shortcut, that one stays as the generic photo icon. Now that I don't want. It's actually the wrong icon anyways, now that I think about it. That should have been the file icon. Let's make that a to-do for another day. That the shortcut default icon is from app, not extension. Yeah, because this icon is from the photo app. But it should be, there's a generic photo icon that you see here on load, that little, it's almost like the white document with this picture in it, kind of. Anyways, I think I made a note of it there. Shortcut default icon is from app, not extension. Yeah, okay, I can test that later. But what should have happened anyways, it should have showed the white icon with this picture on it, but then should have gone and shown this shortcut. So I just wanted to, for shortcuts, for it to do the same logic that kind of tries to get a dynamic picture. So let's copy the, wait, did I copy the patch file? No, I did not. Or did I? Nope. I don't think I did. Let's copy the patch file here. There we go. These patch files are quite easy. Although at the same time, you could argue I could just dump the entire thing in there at once and then go file by file and discuss it. But I like this for the commit history, and also it allows me to change things at the right level. The level of like the files that are changing. So this one's simple enough. I did the same kind of thing where I switched from it being a dispatch to just being a generic function so that I could call it as well. Or wait. Why did I change that? Huh. What was the reasoning behind changing that? I'm not so sure about that piece there. Why did I change this? Let me try to change this back and see what it complains about. Open the file without all that gobbledygook. So if I do this, does it dislike that? Oh, okay. It has a problem with icon. Oh, because URL icon can be nothing? Then that's invalid. Wait, is that true? But I check it here. So how is it saying icon isn't any? And here, what was the change? What was the long-term change here? Let me double check what I changed. So when it finds a shortcut icon, before it was just calling get shortcut info and just dumping that. Here's shortcut info. Oh, okay. So now it does one more step where it looks at where the shortcut was pointing. And currently it's just handling the image one, which is the same as this. Is that what it's doing? Yeah, it looks like that's what it's doing, which is not ideal. This might be another thing that I end up changing. Because I'm not super happy with this, honestly. I mean, this is okay, but at the same time, this is duplicated slightly. The idea is the same here. Checking for the picture. Oh, no, this is slightly different. This is just checking for anything dynamic. So this is like, is it a picture or is it an MP3? Because in both of those cases, I have a dynamic image I load. So then it loops back around and recalls itself almost recursively, but with a new extension based on the shortcuts file. And it passes. Oh, it makes its own little callback here, like a mini callback, a callback of a callback. Wait, why does it do that? So I call it because I want it to be in here? Huh. Oh, because it's going to go through this. Oh, because I don't want to change certain parts of it. So I want the callback to get called again within this recursive one, but I don't want it to replace the original process and URL. Or do I? Do I even care about that? I think so, yeah. Because it's going to get like well, it would be the same thing though, honestly. It's almost the same as this get shortcut info. Basically, the gist of it is I wanted to just change the there we go. Just to change the icon. So when I get the shortcut info, instead of just using the icon that came from what the shortcut expected, I do a little bit more. So this might actually have fixed that other icon issue that I was just complaining about. Yeah, this one here. I might have literally just fixed that. Let's just double check. Oh yeah, now they both were the right icon before they loaded. So it broke these. Nice. I think I fixed this in a follow-up commit, but that's not the nicest little breakage there. Did I mess with this commit? No, this is all it was. So I think the issue now is that, let's take a peek at what my next commit was after this to try to figure out why I broke it there. Oh yeah, here we go. Removed in last commit. Dope. Ah, okay, I missed that. Oops, yeah, that's a doe. Where was that supposed to go? Oh yeah, after the image check. So here, that was supposed to be there. Right, so when it comes in, we want this default one to occur. But if this happened, also deal with that. I guess I could put these in a different order then. Callback could be called first, because this needs to happen asynchronously anyways. So it's like, let's just update the icon as soon as possible before we even get this started. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think so. That's what I do in other cases, like here. I say load an icon, and then let's do the asynchronous thing. So I'll do that here too, which is slightly different from how I had it in the code. Oops, let's just jump to me randomly. All right, so let's refresh again. Yeah, there we go. I think that looks fine. Dynamic icons for shortcuts without the one with where I broke it. Double check that. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, I put the callback up here now instead of down there. Cool. All right, that one's done. So that counts as 2. That was both of these. So the next one's the big one. I get right to the video player. Let's not mess around. And then one after that is when I do the VLC skin. So for, yeah, one thing at a time. Let's do the video player. The big one. So like I said, I'm using video.js. Let's just look in the code files with the patch here because it's a big patch. We'll jump to the code. And I'll load the patch. Like so. There we go. So as you can see, that's a pretty big one. You can see here that a lot of files changed. Let's go through them. Let's go through the ones that changed first. These M's here for modified. So the file systems I updated because what changed? Right, I added some files to public. The library files, the video.js CSS file that's needed, the library file itself, a YouTube extension for it, as well as the icons and a shortcut. And the shortcut's just your basic format. Very simple. Base URL equals video player. And that's on the start menu right now. The icons, like I said, I went with the VLC icon. These three things are the library files. We don't need to worry about this. This is the auto-generated file system. Let's go to the directory. So I added the video player here. Black background, the VLC icon, just like the other ones. I've added some extensions for it currently. MP4, the OGG video formats, and the WebM format. I think a few commits from now I add MKV. Let's double check if I can just add that one right now. Here, support MKV. What was this fix flicker too? Maybe we can add both these little tweaks. These look simple enough. So this is adding MKV support. I'm going to apply this patch, and I'm also going to apply this fix flicker patch. Oh, wait a minute. Fix flicker, no. I don't think so, because that's part of the skin, the VLC skin, as is this. But yeah, let's just do this MKV one too, because I should have had this originally. This was overlooked. I've tried to look at what HTML5 video formats are likely playable. This isn't guaranteed to work. You could do MKVs with a different codec, I believe, that wouldn't have worked. But for some of them, it'll work. Typically, if we'll get this thumbnail that I'm telling you about that we'll have, then that'll work. Okay, here we go. So let's just continue with the changes. So yeah, MKV is also on the list. So these are all the files that are supported. That's the main hook. Let's just skip past that for a second. Can we... Well, there's not much else to skip past. So it's another one of the component apps. The component apps have this very basic structure, container component, sorry, where I give a hook, I give styling component, and sometimes I give an additional element that needs to be placed. In this case, it's this one, and I've used the inherited CSS stylings. This is just easier with video.js. The way that they do their styling, this just makes sense to use theirs. For now, I've disabled this silly accessibility questioning my video element. It wants me to add captioning, but this video element's dynamic, so it doesn't really make sense to add subtitles at this time. In the future, perhaps. And maybe I'll support SRT files, subtitle files, and then we can have caption here in those cases. In the config, I've got the files. I made a function here called getVideoType, where you give it a URL, and it'll figure out what kind of MIME type it is. If it's MKV or MP4, it'll call it MP4. If it's these three, it's like an OGG video. If it's this one, it's like a WebM type. Otherwise, not supported. I've also linked to the YouTube library and to the two other libraries for the main video.js thing. I've got some config stuff set up here, autoplay, preload, and responsive. These are generic config settings for video.js. If you go through their options here, their documents aren't ideal, but here we are, just like preload and a few other things. Yeah, preload's one of the things I had listed. And so for styling, I've kept it simple for now. It's just very basic, where I made sure the video.js thing takes up the whole window. I've did the usual height fix that I need to do for the title bar until I figure out how to get that out of the apps. And I've also done this poster piece to make sure it fits properly. The poster image is like the thumbnail, video thumbnail type of thing. I've declared some of my own types here for video options. These are based on the options, but I couldn't find a good video.js TypeScript types. Maybe there is one out there. I'll probably look in the future. Maybe I'll make a note of that. Video.js TypeScript types, question mark? Do they exist? But for now, I've just written my own. Pretty simple.
And we're going to do a few more commits this episode where I add on to this. And then here's the main hook. I've tried to keep it simple enough. If we go back to the docs here for video.js and we look at the basic getting started setup, where's their basic example here? I mean, they have some really basic examples. Like this one here is pretty basic. Ideally, where is it here? You load the script files, and then you make a video element for it to latch onto. And you don't need to make this source element. And then you just have to run the video.js command in which you can pass in an element directly to the video.js command, and you can pass in some options like is done here. And that's the basics of it, honestly. So if we look at what I've done here, I've got my hook that's got the container ref. And when it boots, let's just minimize this for a second. Other than that, there's not much to it. I have a little player dispose when it closes. That'll try to clean up for the instance. That dispose function is part of player.js or video.js, whatever the heck it's called. So here's the main hook. This is the main thing here. So if we got a URL, we check if it's a YouTube URL because and then that's based on this youtube.com or utu.be. Those are the two type of URLs that it said it supported, the plugin said. I get the video element from the container nodes. I base the MIME type on, if it's YouTube, we have this special video /YouTube format. Otherwise, we use this video MP4 format. And then we have this load player command. We'll make that small for a second. I'll get back to that. So I do the load files where I get the libraries. If it's a YouTube link, then I also get the YouTube library. And once those are loaded, I check if it's YouTube, we load the player directly with the URL. Otherwise, if it's not YouTube, if it's from the file system, then we read the file from the file system and we create the buffer URL to load. Now the player takes the URL and adds it to these sources, which is their concept for how to load videos. And it basically just says, this is if the player already exists. So the first time it runs, it's like this, and it sets the player state up here, the video player. And this is that video.js command where we pass in the element and we pass in the options. So the config you already saw on the config page, these three pieces. And if it's YouTube, it also adds this where it says the tech order needs to have YouTube in it. That's a video.js thing again. And the YouTube controls should be shown. Otherwise, if it's not YouTube, we just show the normal controls. And then we pass in the sources. And if we're loading a second time, then it would do this instance where player already exists, and it just changes the source. And then if it's not YouTube, it adds the URL file name to the title, and it cleans up the buffer URL. And that's it. So let's test it out here. So I'm going to drag an example video on. So there it is there with an icon. If I double click it, there we go. We got our little video. And as you see, there's still some flaws in it. Well, I mean, for the most part, it's not bad. It didn't do any auto resizing yet. The controls don't look anything like video VLC yet. But there's the basic idea of it, you know? It's kind of cool. So I have a video player to start with. So yeah, I don't think we need to change that commit too much, honestly, because that's just the initial one, plus the MKB support now. So yeah, let's commit that first one and then add some more. We'll just call that video player. Another one in the bucket. So next up, we did this. We haven't done fixed flicker. We'll probably do fixed flicker at the same time we do this VLC skin. So let's get into the skin. So the only 2 changes, 3 changes, 4 changes. How many changes? A lot of changes. Okay, let's just use the patch file and take a look at it in VS Code. Switch over to VS Code again. Open up our terminal, whichever one had the git apply commands. Type in our command like so. And here we go. So a lot of stuff needed to change. Let's see what needed to change first. So I added this inactivity timeout 0. This stops the controls from disappearing. I don't want the controls to disappear. They should show all the time. On that note, let's add that flicker commit too, real quick. What was that? This one here. Basically, I just added this line to the control bar. So let's just jump right to that control bar and add that here before we review that. Okay, so the inactivity timeout, that's just to keep the bar showing all the time. I'm just going to paste that message in there. Whoops. I've updated the types a little bit because now I'm defining the control bar to define what buttons show. Before I just had defaults, but to define the buttons, you have to have this control bar object with its children, and then a volume panel with an inline boolean, and then an inactivity timer that I added. I also got rid of responsive here. If we go to the config, I've removed responsive. That didn't really work with my skin. And so in the control bar here, I've cut the children down to a much smaller amount. It just has a play button, the current time, the progress bar, the total duration, a volume control, picture in picture button, and a full screen button. And I've switched the volume to not be inline so that when you hover over it, it appears on top instead of on the side. Other than that, it's all the changes are CSS. So how do I explain CSS? I mean, I can show you it. We can look through it a bit here. But for the most part, it's extremely basic CSS. I added a box here around the buttons. I added some hover effects for the buttons. I've tried to match the colors with how I saw it in VLC. I've put the buttons with the right spacing that looked correct to me. With the font that looked closest to the font I saw. With the gradients that I could do for the bars and for the volume. And for the progress bar. It could still use a bit of tweaking perhaps, but that's the basics of it. I think I hide the big play button now. I don't even show that one. So let's take a look and see what it looks like now and see if it looks any better. So now when we open it, so there we go. So it's not perfectly VLC, but it's closer. See, it's got the cool buttons. A lot of it's pretty darn close, honestly. But the layout's slightly different with VLC. These buttons are almost pixel perfect. This button, well, the pause button, honestly, is the best one. But the squares are pretty much the right size. The hover colors and all the bar colors are. This rounding bar is. But this bar here should be above. I couldn't get the gradients right on this circle yet. The timer, the font's not perfect. The volume thing's not right. The colors are pretty close, but the volume bar looks totally different on VLC. Anyways, for now, I'm pretty happy with that. So that's my attempt at the VLC player. And I have a few other videos that will show examples of here. I'll just drag those on. Like this one here is a little Earth one. It can play a few different videos. It can play multiple videos at the same time, which is kind of cool. So it's really starting to turn into something slowly. These hover elements do not show previews. I'm not surprised about that, but that's okay. In general, though, it looks pretty good. It's actually reasonably performant. So that was the VLC skin for the video player. Hopefully that added a little bit of flair to it. And there's more to come on that in the future. I'll probably tweak it more. And like I said, maybe at one point I will add VLC in there. Like literally VLC. I'll show you what I was talking about, actually. Was it VLC.js? It's called. Yeah. Made with WebAssembly. That just goes to VLC's website. Yeah, I think this project's mostly dead, but at the same time, conceptually, it still doesn't need to be. It's only a year old, so somebody could pick it back up and finish it. Missing evolutions from web browsers, so yeah. For now, I think we'll just stick with the HTML5 video element, and if it's not supported, hey, I mean, I'm not trying to support every single thing, and maybe in the future I'll support more of them some other way. All right, let's commit that. This, I think, was fixed, by the way, so let's remove that one. We'll keep the note about the types, because, yeah, if I can not define the types and just have them known via a dev dependency, that would be great. Done. Moving on. Update system folder icons. What did I change here? Ah, right. So this was a cool idea, I think. Yeah, let's do this patch. So in Windows for folders, you have this file called a desktop.ini file you can have that allows you to define your own icons for a folder. And I've decided to pretty much just copy that idea. And yeah, just this is my attempt at it. Whoa, I changed a lot. Okay, so I think I moved some stuff. Why does it show so many icons here? There seems to be an odd idea that my icons... Okay, I went from music to audio, sure. I don't know why it thinks that so many icons changed. That's a little weird. Did the PR say that many changed? Maybe locally I've just got, well, huh. What happened here? Did I delete them and then... Or I guess these are just new? Are these all new? I guess these are just new icons. Let me just double check this. Audio. All right, so music became audio. And now music is this little music icon. Documents. All right, that's new. The desktop one's new. Oh, okay, these are all new actually. This is the My PC one. So right, the idea of these are that the user folder should have these icons. Right, okay. So that part's fine. So here's my desktop INI files. So let's say in this example, this one's on the desktop itself. So it says the icon file is desktop.png. In the case of, let's say, the music one, it says music.png. In the constants, I've added the idea here of system files and system paths. So I've moved the deleted files to be a system path. So this is a straight up path versus every desktop.ini file is considered a system file. So these files I want to be hidden basically. And then in the directory, I've changed File Explorer's default icon to be the folder icon, and I've actually gotten rid of the Explorer icon altogether. And I've switched this back to being this logic where set info is set because now it can happen asynchronously. And then here's the meat of the change here where, so when I'm getting the info without an extension, basically for a folder, I check if, so what was I doing before? So before I was passing this directory, I've switched back to, no, sorry, before I was just directly returning the object. Right, that's what I changed here. Instead of just going set info, the element, I switched it back to being how this one is, where the setting happens inside it, which is from callback. So if it's a directory, set folder info, let me close this. What did I change here? So before this was already doing File Explorer. Set folder info, and icon here is dynamic. And I start by setting the folder as the folder icon, and then I read the desktop INI file. And if there's no error, which means it exists, then I parse the INI data, and from that I get that icon file. And then I update the folder to still load File Explorer, still with the same URL, but with this icon instead of this icon. Otherwise, I do unknown if it's not a directory, which is kind of what I was already doing. Yeah, I was already doing that. And right, I switched this music to be called audio because now I have a music file. And then this here, I added that system files and system path check. So in either case, those are considered filtered system files. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So you see now we got the better My PC icon. That's the one that's actually the Windows one. And now when you go to users and public, you see here these folders are special. And they have special icons now. And in the next few commits, we're going to also update the taskbar entries to reflect that. You see here they still show folders on the folder, the icon here and in the taskbar. We'll be fixing that too. But yeah, that's the first step. And as you see, the desktop.ini files I don't even show. I might change that in the future and allow hidden files to be shown. Couldn't hurt. Okay. So that's that for that commit. what was this one called? Yeah, this was basically just updating those folder icons for folder icons to have custom icons. Folders can now have custom icons, and the File Explorer one's gotten some tweaks, and now I've got the My PC icon. Like so, and commit that. What's this one? Taller default window. Yeah, there's a little tweak, a little minor one. I think I just wanted the window to be a little bit taller because now it's like I'll make it like a box, 250 by 250. Because then when I open up the generic folder that I always open, the My PC one, I won't have to make it bigger for it to see everything. Pretty minor change. But if you see here, if we clear the cache and we open up My PC, now I don't have to like, before it was like this all the time, and I would always be like, just to get rid of that scroll bar. Now it's a little bigger when it opens up. Pretty minor one. So next up, we did all of these. Now it's another big one here. Drag to sort files. So let's just go right to the patch for this one, because this one I'm pretty sure is complicated. The patch. So commit will be called that, and I'll just open up the git command and patch me some code like so. So what changed here? 3 files. Let's see the simplest one first. Oh, there's no simple ones. So if you remember this sort logic, this was right at the start where I said we were going to get rid of that reverse order that I added. So here's me getting rid of it now. Now it's gone again. I've simplified this function a lot to just be basically, instead of passing the setter, what is it doing now? Now setting is stored in the session. Might have already been that way. So now when you do use sort by, it gets the set sort order from the session, and it knows the directory and the files, and it returns a function here that allows sorting by a type. So if there's files, you set the sort order to be, wait, what? What is this doing? The current sort order. Oh, okay, right. Because this is the sort orders. So each key is a directory. So to say this directory, sort the files this way. So keep the current other sort orders, but for this directory, we update it to be this new sort order, where we sort the files. Here's the files. Here's the new sort order. And then I just convert them to the keys because I just want the names of the file order. So I've simplified that function a lot. And what's this one doing here? This is actually what was happening here. This is the same function, but in the other place. So I've switched this where instead of checking, does it still do that? Okay, yeah. So if there aren't files, it does that. Now if there are files, it does a bunch of things. It gets the names, and then if there's no sort order, or the files and the sorted files don't match lengths, then let's just update the sort order right there with whatever the files are, because there's a discrepancy in the sort order. And that's if there's no sort order yet. So this sets the sort order. In this case, if the file names have some sort, yeah. So if the current files have something that the sorted files don't, so we already know the lengths are the same, because if the lengths were different, it would have went here. So there is a sort order, and the lengths are the same. So we check the sort order, and if one of the files doesn't match, that means that there's been a rename. So we update the sort order based on that. So we get the old name from what's missing from one array, and we get the new name from what's missing from the other array. And if there's an old and a new, then we update the sort order for that directory where we change that one piece to say that in this exact sorted position, the name's changed. Seems a little unnecessary, but kind of is. And then this is the final check. This is kind of like what we had here before, where we say if the order is wrong. So the order's changed. It's the same length, it's the same files, but the order is different. And in that case, we resort the contents. Do we? Yeah, and this is the case where the sort order changed. So if the sort order changed from somewhere else, then I was requesting that the files would change. So now I'm saying set files, sort the content by that new sort order that changed. Either the current files, or if the files have never been set, just use the files that came in on the whatever's here. I guess, yeah, that would this ever occur then? Maybe this isn't necessary. It seems to think so. Implicitly has any. That's just incorrect. Okay, so that's the basics there. I basically just added a few rules to the sorting to compare the file list with the sorted list and see, you know, is one of the lists wrong? Okay, use this one. Are they different lists now? Okay, update it in this spot. Are the orders different? Okay, then just sort it by whatever the new order is. That's the basics of this. And then the sort command, instead of passing set files, now it passes that directory in files. And finally, right, so this was just for keeping better track of the logic of sorting, I think. What was this for? Yeah, this was when to know to update the sort order and when to update the files. Now the dragging, that's another beast. Basically what I did, I already had drag end, but I've added some logic to it, and I've added drag over. So when we drag over now, when you click an icon and you start dragging it, the drag over will get triggered. And I'll check if there was a target element, if it dragged over an LI element. And basically, all the icons are part of an OL, HTML ordered list, and the LIs are the list items. So every time it hovers over one, that's like the icon above it, or the icon below it, or the icon beside it. So it's saying if I just hovered, if while dragging myself, I hovered over another icon, or just, this is just an icon. I think here I check if it's another one. No, perhaps I don't. Perhaps that's not relevant. I don't think it triggers on itself. So if I hover over another one, it gets the parent element, which is the OL, the ordered list that contains all the files. And then from that OL, it gets the children element, which is all the files in the position that they are within on the DOM, the document object model. Now to drag over a focused item, it knows file here because when we created the events, we passed in file. So we say the drag events that occur are for this file. So if the focused entries includes that file, then I say it dragged over a focused entry. And if it dragged over a focused entry, we don't do any resorting. Because that's like if you picked some files and then you drag back around and you come right back to the focused files and you let go, it's not going to move anything because it's like you're putting it right where you dragged it. So that's the logic here. If the item I dragged over is this one, is in the focused entries already, then don't worry about changing where it's going to be dropped. Don't worry about when you update the index of where the positioning should be when it's dropped. Don't worry. Just put -1, which is like don't put it anywhere. Otherwise, what it does is it goes through the list of all the LI elements, the files that are in the DOM, and it finds the one that's itself. Sorry, that's its target, not itself. So as you're hovering, let's say you hover over the top one. If we have the list of the children, we know that top one is the first DOM element. So index would be like 0 in this case. So I'm saying I wanted, wherever the icon is, let's say it was icon 3 and I drag to the top and I say the index is now 0. When I let go of it, I want it to move to that position. So here when it's dragging, it just it updates the position. Every time it drags over a new position, it says, if you let go now, it's going to go here now. And then the other piece of that is the drag end piece. That's the dropping piece. In this case, the repositioning. So if the drop index is not -1, so if drop index got set, by default it's -1. And if you hover over itself, it resets it back to -1. But if you hover over something else, let's say it's a 2, it's going to go into this. So drag end already was doing set dragging false. That part we didn't change. If we see somewhere in here, yeah, it was just doing that for now. Now it does more. So it says not dragging anymore. But if you updated the drop index, then we're going to update the sort order. And what we do is we get the sorted entries that aren't the focused ones. So let's say we pick 3 or 4 focused ones, and then we drag them all to the top and we let go. We want all the items that aren't those items in a list, and then all the items that are those focused entries we put in that spot. So that's the idea here. The sorted entries are the ones that I removed, the ones that aren't focused, the ones that aren't part of the drag. So now we have all the ones that aren't part of the drag, and then we want to splice in our focused entries, the ones that we want to drop at the drop index point. So that's like saying within this array, at this point, I want you to put these files, and don't remove any files. Just put these names in that place, and then send the updated sort order with this directory updated with that new sorted entries that has the spliced focused entries. So that's the gist of it. There's a lot to explain. Let's check it out. So now if I try to drag this to the top, there we go. It moved. Yeah, I need to work on the drag spots. I'd like them to be a little bigger because as you saw, my first drag was unsuccessful. But that's more to do with me failing to drag it properly. So you see when it works, it's not bad. But anyways, we have draggable icons now. That's an accomplishment, I would say. And they can handle sorting too. So let's say sort by size, but then I want to move this one to the top there. Can do something like that. So cool. That was drag to sort files. And yeah, we have the ability. We already have the sort order. We got that in another episode, I think. The ability to remember where things are positioned now, icon-wise. And now we have the ability to move it. I'm going to commit that. That was good. I'm happy with that. What are we at? We're already at an hour? No, just about. I can almost sense when we're close to an hour. We're at 57 minutes. It felt like an hour. Add JS-DOS JSON to config. Right. So there was a JS-DOS error I was getting whenever I would try to load zip files. And it turned out it was because I was injecting this DOS conf file, but I guess at some point they also require this JS-DOS JSON file. And I wasn't including that. So I changed the JS-DOS logic to, this was 2 pieces. It was this part and this part. And now I've turned it into this object where it says, this is the path I want in the zip file. This is the path where it is on my file system to take the copy from. And then all I did here is change this from a single check to like a loop. So it loops over these 2 entries and just adds them the same way it was doing here, where it adds it to the zip, adds it to the zip. And this basically allows it to not be busted. So here's the JSON example. I just took the Doom one, the same place that I got this one from. I took the one that came with my Doom and then just removed all the Doom stuff. So it was generic enough. So that's all this one is too. Basically, the only Doom thing was here at the bottom under the auto exec. They had it under value here to be doom.exe. I've removed that. And now there's no errors. So now if you just load any zip file in JS-DOS, it just loads without an error and doesn't complain. And as a test, how easily can we test this? Easily enough. First, let's apply the patch. So we actually have that change in the code. That's going to be an important step in testing it. Having it actually in the code. Otherwise, we're going to have a hard time making it work. So the patch name this time is to be or not to be. And I've already discussed what changed, basically. Not too much. And here's that JSON file. Oops, back to me again randomly. So let's try to create one here. Let's actually make this into a zip. Turn a zip there. And then we'll right click that and say open in JS-DOS. And we got an error, maybe because I need to reload the page after adding files. Let's try that. Let's reload Next.js. because I wouldn't have expected that error, but I got it. Let's try this again. There we go. No error this time. So you see it opened cleanly. And presumably there's this file in here. Yeah, there it is there. New. I don't think it has anything in it, so it's not going to show anything. We could do another one here. Let me delete this. Open this. Say, hello. Save that. Close it. Add it to a zip. Right-click the zip. Open it in DOS. Go to the directory. And then type new. There we go. We got HTML and DOS all in our web page. We created a document, edited it, saved it in an HTML markup, turned that into a zip file, and then open the zip file in a DOS emulator, and then open that file via the DOS command. Pretty quickly too. It actually was pretty responsive, so I'm pretty happy about that. Who knows what people are going to use this thing for once I finish get all these pieces linked up. I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe I'm the only one that's going to play around with it. If that's the case, whatever. I'd be happy with that. Okay. So yeah, we added this little JS DOS fix. Let's move on. I still have a bunch of commits, it feels like. Oh man. Oh, we have a lot. Let me drink some water. Moved/added shortcuts. Did I? Oh, okay, right. This is in preparation for getting rid of a lot of files off of the repo. But basically, I've decided that some of the files probably shouldn't be in the repository. They're kind of personal to my dustinbrett.com version of what I'm making, which is fine, I think. And I just don't think there's a reason to keep them in the repo. They are going to be part of the app that I show to everybody. But they're just going to be things that I host on the web server, and they don't need to be part of the Git repository like the Doom program and stuff. Although, wait, I'm not there yet. Let's one step at a time. Moved, added shortcuts. So all I did was, what did I do? I added a few to the start menu. So every program I have now, I've got a shortcut in the start menu. And the start menu is only shortcuts that aren't custom. So let me just show you here. So if we go to the start menu, you'll see here now every URL is just a base URL. Oh, let me jump to the code here. So here we're in the start menu. So we got base URL, base. So these shortcuts are just pure shortcuts to the programs. Versus the desktop now, I've moved the Doom and the Calibri one because those are very specifically pointing to documents for the user. So that's when I want to kind of separate that idea. So let's do that. Moved, added shortcuts. That's step one of the move. And we can see what that looks like in the code here. If we refresh, clear all of this. So now the shortcuts look like that by default, and the start menu is a little more full of whatever apps we got. Which also is nicer for showcasing the apps. Just making sure every app has a place you can actually launch it. Even though I'm still a little far away from every app you launch can't necessarily load a file by itself. If you make a shortcut, it usually can. But the idea of like file open or dragging on, some of the apps work, some don't. In long term, they all will, ideally. Let's commit this. And let's move on. Move to stream notes. What does that mean? What did I do here? I think the attempt there was to rename a folder, and I screwed up. Yeah, these two were just my attempt to rename a folder. Let's just do that ourselves. So I named this wrong from the start. Public documents. Here, streams notes. No, it's stream notes. There we go. Ignore this gray. That's incorrect at the moment. Soon it'll be correct. So there we go. It just moved them. That's what I wanted. Let's tweak the name of that. Moved to stream notes -s. Okay. That fixes those two. Now here's the git ignore. Here's the big one I was telling you guys about. So this is basically the idea, is that we're going to keep the desktop folder, the my PC icon, the desk documents folder, the stream notes folder and all of its documents, because that's connected to the app, the music folder, the picture folder, the start menu folder and all of its shortcuts, the video folder, and all the folders desktop.ini files, which will keep those shortcut info. Otherwise, remove it, basically. So with that, let's just do that. That was a big patch. We'll apply that here if I can find the darn thing. Wait, where'd it go? Huh. Doesn't seem to have saved. Or I made a mistake. Let's just try that again. I think it's so big that I have to leave the tab open. I think because it's like a rearranging of binaries and deleting of binaries, I guess. Because I remember I learned a command when you update the gitignore file, there's a git command you can run that kind of just cleans it up. Maybe it'd be easier to just run that than try to fix this patch. Because this patch file is actually kind of big. Okay, there we go. It finally downloaded. Boy, that was a big one. Let's run that, and hopefully it actually is the complete file and not some broken thing. Yeah, it looks like it. So it got rid of a lot. It got rid of the Doom shortcut, the Linux shortcuts, my blog post, my Linux and Calibri image, the JS-DOS image, the Flash files, the Winamp skins, the pictures. So if we look at the folder structure here now at public, it kept all the program files because these, oh, sorry guys, again, I didn't switch over. We can start at this view anyways. So the public folder is the one in question here. And it's keeping all the program files. Those are necessary for the apps. It's keeping the system stuff. That's necessary for the OS. But in user here, it's changed a lot. Now, it's not reflecting here, unfortunately. Classic VS Code. Let's close VS Code and open it again in hopes that it'll smarten up. I'll switch back to the browser, then switch back to the code. I have to open up yarn dev again to get my dev environment back up. Now, I was hoping here it would have respected the gitignore file, but it still seems to be git ignoring my visuals here. That's unfortunate. Huh. That's odd. Oh, okay. I see what it's done here. It's literally deleted them. That's not what I want. Let's undo that here by clicking this. Restore those. So let's just start with the gitignore file and let's figure out that command to make it not do what it just did there. Gitignore update files. It's like something like a cache command or something. Yeah, this looks like maybe what it was. Yeah, this plus this. Let's try that. So if we go back to the code here. So I've just added those ignore rules to try to get it working. Now when I go here to public, I have all my files back. So they're all still there. Now if I run that git command, I think it'll remove a million things. Now if I run the git add command, it should only include back the ones that aren't part of the gitignore. Here we go. Why is it saying it deleted some of them, though? Okay. Well, it's acting as if it deleted them, but now I still see them. I just don't want them to get deleted from my local computer is the issue, because obviously those need to stay there for my development work. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to back up the folder locally. I think now it's correctly working. So these Ds here, but it's showing the files didn't get deleted. And as you can see here, the desktop ini file has stayed. These folders don't need to exist. This one stayed along with all those. The desktop ini file stayed. Again, the ini. These shortcuts all stayed, and this ini. So the right stuff stayed. It did work. This was the format I had to do for gitignore. I tried it a bunch of different other ways, and that looks excessive, but that was necessary. So let's commit that. And now, ideally, it should... Yeah, it's bad at right now. It's showing the fact that this is not tracked. Let's try once again to close VS Code. One more time. There's got to be like some command I can just run. Like VS Code / smarten up. Okay, so it's not acknowledging. I was expecting these folders to show invisible here. Or not invisible, but sort of gray to say that they're being ignored. This part it's doing that. Okay, that's something. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Now it is. There. So all the gray stuff is now being ignored. So when a normal user would check out my files now, they would just get the my PC shortcut and the INI, just the stream notes, nothing in just nothing in music, nothing in pictures, all the start menu icons, and nothing in video. Not that there's anything in video right now. So the idea behind this is that more people, it's more of a custom OS now. People can do their own things with it, you know? It doesn't have to have my custom files on it. But for me, for my instance, for dustinbrett.com, it's going to. Okay. Well, we've only got 2 days of commits left. I did a lot today, actually. That's all today. But this is like a little bit Friday night and then today. Let's get through the last of it. Use file icons for process icons. Yes. This is what I was saying about the window and this taskbar not showing the correct icons. When you open up a folder, it was showing the folder icon, even though it should have been showing the My PC icon. Hopefully that is what we just fixed here. Let's take a peek. Because I'm not even sure if that is what that commit was. I think it was, though. So I've got the image extensions here. I've moved up that logic. The logic was here before. No, it wasn't. What was this doing here? Oh, so now when I do open file, I pass an icon. So basically with open file is when it creates the process. So now I say, here's an initial icon you can use. So in the case of the images, I don't pass an image. I don't pass the icon because I don't want the window icon and the taskbar to be showing the generated icon from the image when it makes the little thumbnail icon. That's why here I've disabled passing it. Here I make sure to pass icon when I'm doing open now. Same in the right click menus here. I pass the icon. Almost always it's known. I was just never passing it. So now I pass the icon. Yeah, before I was calculating it here. Now I moved that up so I could pass it here and here. Passing it here instead of just those two loading commands. So basically the idea was to just add this optional initial icon that gets loaded on top. And before we commit that one, I wanted to see, because I felt like there was a follow-up to that one. Clear focus, if only one focused. Maybe it was this one. Probably not. You know, it might have been, but let's just apply that one in its own time. So back to this one. Let's check it out. If we go to the browser, now when I open my PC, let's refresh this. Oh, wait, am I running? Oh, I'm not even running it. Right, because I closed VS Code yet again. So I need a moment to start it up. Here we go. So now when I open my PC, there we go. So now the icon here is the correct one. Let's see if that holds true. Here it's the folder icon. What about on this? There we go. Now it's the mini document one versus the big one. Nice. So now we're getting the icons we expect to get. That's good. Great. Let's commit that. Another thing I didn't mention in the last commit, the git ignore one, I've also ignore now the file system generated files, these two, because I don't think there's a point in even committing those anyways. It just changes too often. And now they're going to reflect the things I have locally are different than the things that the repo is supposed to have. So it just wouldn't have been consistent to keep committing those. Okay, what's next? That was this one. Ability to hide title bar icon. This is for the photo app. which I think means I applied it to the photo app too. Did I? Yeah, here. Let's apply this patch. So I noticed that for the Windows Photo app, the title bar for the on a window actually doesn't show the icon, oddly enough. Some kind of design choice, I guess. So I like the idea of having the ability to do that, which is why I've added the flag for such a thing, I believe. That's what I did here. So within the title bar, we have hide title bar icon. And if there's no hide title bar icon, show the icon. And I've moved the margin on the image from being 8 pixels there to having it being on the container that has the image inside it. That way, if the icon's gone, the text doesn't just squish up against the side, which is what happened. So I moved the 8 pixels that was here on the image to being here. So it moves the image 8 pixels, and when the image isn't there, the text moves 8 pixels. Here I've set the photo app to be one of those apps that doesn't have a title bar icon. I've added that to the type, and I've, again, adjusted the margins here where I moved the 8 pixel out of here. So let's check it out. Here's a picture right here. So there we go. So as you see, there's no title bar icon there, but it's still here, but no longer there. I'm not sure why they've decided to do that, but I've decided to copy it. Maybe there's some sense behind that, like the image. Let the image be the focus. Don't even get the icon involved in that one. It's an interesting design choice anyways. I like copying it. What next? Clear focus on right-clicking new item. This is like a bug fix? Oh yes, I think the issue here, let's say I click this and then I right-click, oh wait, I right-click here and then I right-click here and then I right-click here. Oh yeah, it's selecting all of these. That's not what I want. If I right-click one, it should unfocus. So I've added a blur here. Basically, that was all that was required there. I think there's that's a two-part story because I think that fix is part of another fix. So I just pass in, instead of breaking these two down, I made a function called focus function. I break them down here, but then here I pass it in because now on this end, I actually needed both of them. I needed the blur and the focus. Okay, clear focus on right click. Nice little refactor. Actually, that was like a bug fix more than a refactor. If only one focused item, just use whatever was clicked. This is part of that other bug fix, yeah. So here the absolute entries I've changed. From this simplistic approach here where it would just always make a new set in which path plus whatever's focused is included. Now, if there's only one focused item, then it actually should be always have been whatever the path was. Otherwise, you can do that combined version here. I'll just inline fix this one. It's just that change there. So that should make it so that if I right click here and then I right click here and I press copy and press paste, yeah, I only get one item. Before I was getting both of these items. It was remembering this previous right click and this click. If I click this one, it would have been only these two, but it was always like remembering the one before it, which was not desired. Commit that. If only one focused item, use whatever was clicked. Create .index first if it's needed. Right. This is to fix the pipeline. Now that I don't have the FS files as part of the repo, it no longer was creating the .index folder. So I've just changed the file system creation commands. I switched the order so that it does one after the other, because one of them I have control over versus one of them comes right from the node module. So this one here that I custom made, I've just added a little recursive make directory logic to say, hey, if the index folder doesn't exist, just make it. This is just to fix the pipeline because I noticed that it got broke from that change. But fixing the pipeline's a noble task. Someone has to do it. And in the case of a personal project, you have to do everything yourself, pretty much. I mean, it is open source. Someone else could contribute, but perhaps I'm guarded on the code anyways. I'm happy. I prefer to do it myself most of the time. Maybe one day, if someone can prove that they have some really cool contributions. If people start PRing stuff in where I'm like, I don't even have comments for this. This is just ready to go. Then it's like, hey, why not? But there's something about saying that I'm the one that coded the whole thing that's nice. If I'm like, oh, it's me and a few other people, they're like, oh, okay, how much did he do? Versus like, yeah, I've been here day one, I did everything. But it's not about the credit at the same time, so I probably shouldn't think about that. Shantai? Who knows? Set icon, read from INI, and general icon tweaks. Okay. So unfortunately, this is one of those catch-all commits I did. We're going to try to decode this one. Sounds like I did 3 things there at least. I'm not so proud of the message. Maybe that was a late night one. The later in the night, the worse my commit messages can get sometimes. Sorry for my sniffles, by the way. I've apologized earlier, but I'll just keep apologizing throughout the episode. Oh, let's try to find the simple changes first. Here's a simple one. Oh, right. So I've set the ability for processes to update the icon. Why would I do that? You may ask. I may ask. I don't know. Let's dig further. So yeah, I've added this icon command. Same like how I have title and a few other ones. The ability to set it dynamically. Okay. That fits the set icon piece, not the Y. Within the process, I have a specify extension icon. Really? What the hell am I doing with that? Huh. I'm not even sure what I did there. Let's just keep going. Okay, so there's something called extension icon on the process. Do I update the directory with one of these? I never even... Wait, what? Did I not even use the damn thing? Why am... Alright, one step at a time here. All of these errors are wrong. They're all just VS Code being slow in the head. Or it hates my patches. It hates when I just slip code in out of nowhere. Let's go to the next change. Right, so for icon, we allow undefined now. Right, we allow a string that's empty. So a string that's empty means I don't know what the process icon should be. Go get it. Why? Ah, yes, I remember why. So if you remember where, like, let's say when I open the documents folder, I would pass in the open command that I want to use this document shortcut. Well, the issue with that is there's other ways to get to the documents folder. One of them being if you are in the documents folder and you make a shortcut, and then you right click on that shortcut and you press open file location, it'll open up the full documents folder. But it didn't know that it was the documents folder, so it didn't know to say use the documents icon. So for that reason, I have logic for the open file and the open folder locations on shortcuts to just say the icon is blank. And then that blank is used to be like, okay, I'll look and see if it's in the desktop.ini, what it should be. And if in the desktop.ini file, if that doesn't exist or I don't know what the icon is, then I'll just use something else. Let's see what I decided. I don't even know. I've moved this to a constant just because I think I needed folder several times. Yeah, just to centralize that. That wasn't unnecessary, but it wasn't critical. I just centralized some constants here, but nothing changed there. Here's what I was talking about. So for the open folder location or open file location shortcuts, I now say, hey, the icon can be nothing or is blank. It's not undefined. It's I don't know what it is. I need you to figure it out. And this is a little fix from before. Maybe we can do these one thing. We can do this one. Let's say use audio icon for mp3/wsz. That's one little tweak. Just to try to split this commit up. That was isolated. Continuing on with the changes here. So yeah, let's just go. This is getting to the big ones now. This function one. I've added a function here called get icon from ini. Actually, that was taken from here. That was part of that thing I made earlier where get the desktop INI, parse it, get the icon file from it, and then set it. I've turned that into one command called get icon from INI, where you pass in the file system, the file module, and the path, and then it returns the string of the icon, which I'm doing this .then syntax to pass into the dispatch. So I set the folder icon like I was doing before, but then instead of this desktop icon logic being all big in there, I've moved it. So now it's just one command here. And and otherwise it's the exact same command pretty much. Now it's a promise that resolves to the icon file, but it's the same command because I wanted to use it in two places. And here I've done a slight little tweak as well, where instead of knowing that audio is needed here, I'll just say for the MP3 extension, just check the icon, because it's all about that. It's about the MP3 extension, so I'll just continue that logic. I don't do it here because there is no photo. Okay, and then last but not least is this file explorer. Does any of this explain this extension icon? I'm just trying to remember. I didn't add that a long time ago. I think that's a mistake that I committed that. That was just like me. That was an idea that went nowhere. This extension icon is just a variable name. This one is just me making no sense. That never went anywhere. So that was a misdirect. So yeah, the changes are mostly just about setting this icon to be dynamic. I think. So far, that's all I'm seeing. That's all this part was here. Here's the last piece of it. So now I'm having the File Explorer handle this. So the File Explorer, before it was getting closing and URL, now it gets closing icon and URL. And it also can get the file system here because we might need it. And before on useEffect, it would say if there's a URL, set the title either to the name, or if there's no base directory, just say my PC. I'm doing the same thing here, where if there's a URL, I set the title just like before, but then I also have some logic here. If there's no icon, which also is considered the air quote one, and the FS is here, then it's time to figure out what the icon is. So first we set the generic one. We set the process icon as either a folder, if it's got that directory name that we checked here, or if it's the my PC scenario, then we use the PC icon. And then here is that same command that I've extracted called get icon from INI with the path here. And then if the icon file comes back, I set that in the process ID. I update the icon again. So now, if we do like I was saying, we go to the documents folder and we create a shortcut here. Put it over there, and I right click and I go open folder. Oh wait, let me close all this stuff. Now I right click and go open folder location. There we go. It's got the correct icon. So it was able to read the icon dynamically without being told what it was. But when it can be told what it was, that is more efficient. But with the open file location, open folder location, it's a little harder to do that, I think. So I'm fine with this is the dynamic way to handle that. So we'll call that set process icon and read from desktop.ini. Specifically for File Explorer, but in general that the code could be reused to other scenarios. That was that. So we're down to just the last day of changes here. I did a few things. I did some stuff. Let's see what I did here. So this one was extremely minor. This was changing the truncate length. I think I might not even do this, honestly. I'm still not fixed on getting the truncation thing right. This whole ... thing. Currently it's just length based, but while figuring out the rename stuff, I've created a function that I'm gonna later reuse to do the truncate thing. But for now I'm gonna skip it. I'm not just add 2 characters. That's not gonna solve the problem of the calculation being exactly the way I want. Let's just move on. Control rows while renaming. Here we go. So this means when we rename the file like this, instead of it just being one row like that, we can make it dynamic. So instead of those scroll bars, we'll actually see it change. So let's do the first step in that direction. I say first step because I'm pretty sure I end up tweaking this several times. But we're already at the last days of commits, so it shouldn't be too many tweaks. Control rows while renaming. So in this case, it's a text area. So when I say rows, I literally mean there's a field called rows. So to do that calculation, I first needed to have the number of what the rename width should be. Before, this was coming from directly in the theme. I had 70. I've changed it to be 75. I gave it a little more padding. I actually changed it to be 80. But then why did I do padding then? I changed the number anyways. I'm trying to remember the exact reasoning behind changing the number. So before it was 70 the width. Now I have it coming from rename width. So now it's going to be 75. It's okay to make it a little bigger. And under padding, oh yeah, okay, so padding before it was already 5. So I just needed to know padding. That hasn't changed. So I increased the width by 5 pixels, and I've made the padding dynamic for the sides, not for the top. The top, it's still just 1 pixel top bottom. I don't care about that. It's not relevant for what I'm calculating. So by making those two numbers dynamic, I can use them in another place to do calculations. And I've also done overflow hidden, so that it'll not show scroll bars anymore in the text area. In the formats here, I've also moved the font that's used. I've moved that into the theme so that I can access that in several places. So in the case of the global style here, instead of going body font family, now it's part of the theme. In the file manager, I've hidden the overflow. This is something that I don't want for now. This was to fix a different issue, but I'm gonna come back to this in another commit. So we'll come back to that, I think. Let me just double check what commit I come back to that. What do we got here? Auto video. Maybe it was that? Yeah, I think it's based on that. Right, exactly. Maybe we can just slip this change in here. Because one issue I noticed was when let's say the file, I need more files. Oh, so I've already applied the patch, so it's already working. But you'll see here, oh wait, there we go. Oh, if you just hold it. So you see here the icons are going up, up, up. That's obviously not correct. That's not ideal. I still need to fix that. I've got a bug listed for that. But before, it was also showing a scroll bar here. And I obviously don't want that either. So that was the idea behind this overflow hidden change that I did. Although I just removed it and the scroll bar didn't appear. I might just skip that whole change for now, honestly. Well, the scroll bars definitely shouldn't show here, but I'm just surprised they... Let's do this change one more time. I'm press save this time. And let's just see. Why didn't I see scroll bars there? I would have expected to. There we go. Okay, so this scroll bar here is obviously wrong. I don't want that. So instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to apply that other patch right now too. Customize if scrollable. Because the issue with having the overflow hidden is that I actually lost the scroll bars on the file explorer, which I don't want. So I didn't think about that. I'm just going to apply both these patches at the same time to make it one bigger commit. There we go. So it applied those both without any issue. Now let's go through the changes again here and see. Got another message here I'll just quickly get to here from Stephen Rose. Bro, I love this. It's actually so much more useful than a paid course. Learning so much more by watching someone break down their code and commits. Oh, that's great to hear. It's much appreciated because sometimes I wonder if this way of breaking the commits down is it for learning or what, you know? I enjoy it. It helps me to rethink what I've been doing, but it's from a learning experience. It's hard to know how to involve people and make sure people are getting something from it. So thanks, Steven. It's good to hear that kind of feedback. Much appreciated. yeah, so let's keep going through this commit. So like I said, we move these things into the theme. We move them out of here. Here's the first real commit. So that's that hide scrolling. So for the desktop, we definitely don't want scroll bars. So I've added this field called hide scrolling. In the file manager here, that is controlled by this setting called scrollable. So if scrollable is true, then overflow is undefined. Otherwise, set it as hidden. The rename hasn't changed. Here's where I added that scrollable field. Here's where I pass in that hide scrolling to the file manager. So if hide scrolling is set, then the file manager's scrollable will be if it's not hide scrolling. And let's skip that for a second. So the rename box is the big thing. We'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to the basics of this, and then I'll show you the function that actually is doing the magic. So before it was already like this, where on key up, it would just halt the event. Now what I do is on key up, I still halt the event, but I also check if there was a target. It's kind of a pointless check. It's always going to be the case, honestly. Can I just do like this and just say, trust me on this? Yeah, because it's really stubborn. Let's just do it this way. I like being double checking anyway, so it's fine. So assuming the target is the text area, we're going to update the rows. And also on initial load, it does that too now. So 2 times on load, it updates the row height top. And every time you type, after you type, key up. And the reason I've done key up for now is that's the only place I could get the value from. Key down, it did not have the value. It had the key that gets clicked, and based on that, you can figure it out. And I think I might have even done that in a follow-up command. But for now, let's just focus on key up. So how does update rows work? It takes the text, and it runs it through this command called getLineCount for now, this function. And line count takes the text, it takes the font size, it takes the font, and it takes the maximum width that you accept. And it tells you, based on that, this is how many rows would be required to display it. How many lines. And then I set the attribute rows based on the line to string. So that's simple enough. Like I say, I tweaked this a few times, but let's just take a look at get line count because it's probably more complex than it needs to be, or than you'd expect it to be. And I actually do simplify this slightly to a lot simpler actually in the near future. But let's start first with the logic behind it. So the basics of it is that you create a canvas element, and then you get the 2D context for it. I run these few simple commands that are a little more performant. You basically tell the context, hey, I don't need transparency, and you don't have to link it up with the DOM. I'm just using the context for whatever, So once you have that context, you set the font with this font string here where you say size, space, family. That'll set so when you write text to the canvas, it'll write text in that font with that size. And then what you can do with context is there's a function called measure text. So you can say, based on a context that has this font, measure this amount of text. And then what I do is I get the width of that, and I say if that width is greater than the maximum width, then we need to figure out how many lines this is. Otherwise, it's 1 line, If the length of all the text is smaller than the max width that I care about, then great. And as far as what the max width was, it's that rename width minus the padding doubled. And the reason the padding doubled because it's like 5 pixels on this side, 5 pixels on that side. So we have to account for that padding because the canvas doesn't. Now, like I said, this code changes a few times, but let's just start with how it is. So for now, if it is greater than, we need to figure out how many lines this takes. So I make a lines array that has an empty line to start. And I break the text into 2 array. So this little spread syntax will actually take like the letters hello. If it's HELO, that'd be like 5 characters. It would break it into. Excuse me. So then I say for each character, we figure out what line we're on still, and then we get that line and we add the character to it, and that's the new line text. Now we measure that new line text, and if that line is now beyond the max width, then we actually push this character onto a new line. But if the line is still okay, it's not beyond the max width, then we add that character to the line and we just continue until eventually you have these lines, each of which is only as long as the maximum length you've set. And that allows you to know how many lines would actually be visible. So it seems a little complex, but I'm telling you, there's actually, to do it the way that I wanted to do it with the accuracy I wanted to do it, there's not necessarily an exact way to do it in CSS that I could find. There's a lot of things that are like close to it, like the line clamp and stuff. But once you get into shadows and stuff, and even just the way that you want to truncate, like even line clamp is like how it decides to do ... is not the same as when Windows decides to do ... So if I want to calculate that truncation length logic to that level of detail, I need to get to the point where I'm like literally measuring text with a canvas to know. And even then, this still isn't perfect. And a couple commits from now, today, will also make this a little more efficient too. But for now, let's see how it looks. We already got a quick peek at it earlier. Let me clear the cache here. So now when we right click and we say rename, you see how it starts as just one line. A few commits from now, I'm going to fix the width too, because the width should start smaller. But so if we type HELLO, and there we go. So as soon as it needed another line, it knew. That was actually because it took the text, brought it over to a canvas, measured it based on the font, told me what the measurements were, and said, hey, based on that, you're going to need 2 lines now, and then updated rows. So it seems like a convoluted path. And in that case there, it didn't quite work. We're going to fix that a little bit. Basically, I needed to add even more padding because canvas measure text will literally measure exactly where the text starts. But the way that that line wrapping works, there's actually like 1 pixel on either side of the text. And it's just the way it is. So I needed to add a bit more padding, but let's get there when we get there because I don't completely remember the logic behind when I added the padding. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here. So let's just commit that. Control rows while renaming. So now when we're typing the name, the rows try to adjust, but there's a little bit of work left to do, which we're gonna do. But we'll get there when we get there. Let's just move on. We did this. And what was the other piece we did? This one, simpler line return. Was that it? No. I don't remember what that other... Oh, yeah, it was this. Customize if scrollable. All right, we're not there yet. Let's just move on to this one. Auto resize video on play. Right, this was another fun one. So if you remember now the video player we got, let me just find a video again. So we open up a video. You see here, it doesn't resize. It starts kind of tiny. So we don't want that. Let's instead have it be dynamic through the power of dynamism. Dynamism, one of those two. So we're going to apply yet another patch. And I think I actually have a few tweaks even to this commit. Oh man. There we go. Gave away the fact that I got a 5 terabyte shortcut on my desktop. Secrets. No, it's full of legally obtained media. Okay. Auto resize. Let's take a peek at what changed. So I had to... The video player also has a function called on, where you can say an event, like on plane, on this, on that. And it has these functions called video height and video width to get those. So based on that, I'm able to do the auto resizing. So in the video player hook, I've added my hook here, use window size, where we can update the window size. And then after the player has been set... Wait a minute here. Would that work? I guess it must. I'm just confused, because if I set sources here, this gets triggered twice, I wonder? I'm actually surprised this worked. Because you set player. Okay, so if I set player, I guess it would loop back around. But I'm setting sources here, so why would I set sources here again? Like a flaw in my own logic of this effect. I guess whatever works is fine, but let's try this here. Let's just get rid of... Oh no, it doesn't like that. But can we? Let's try it. So we can actually do that. Maybe we should. So there's auto resizing. That 2% worked. Let's try that again. Let's try with a smaller video, this one. There we go. So that auto resized pretty clean. And what I've done for defaulting, if it's bigger than the window, when it auto resizes, it just fits into the entire window. And then I resize it from there. So that actually wasn't so bad. So the error that we're getting here, I think, is just because I need to fix the type. Let's just update this here, the video options, to say sources can be optional then. And in fact, it's not even used, so I should probably just delete it. I'm no longer passing sources, although it's good to know that it can be used, but no, I'm no longer using it, honestly. So now I kind of cycle through this. So if player is not set, well, in that case, I don't even need the sources one. I could just copy this directly like that. So then when load player is called here, yeah, it's a bit of a loop. Well, this is already how it was anyways, so I'm not really reinventing the wheel here. But I was setting sources here and here. Didn't make much sense. If this is occurring every time, I might as well just set it here when it gets here. So first time it sets the player, and then on the next loop, it sets this stuff. That's okay. At some point, I'm going to break up this effect, but I'm still early days of these few apps. I feel like I'm starting to get a little bit of refactor debt, and that there's a lot of code I want to refactor. Anyways, let's just look at the logic of this for a second before we tweak it any further. So I get the player video height, the player video width, which I set as height and width. I get the view window of the entire container. And then I see if the height or the width is greater than, then I adjust it based on the aspect ratio here to just fit inside the window. Otherwise, I just use whatever the height and width is. So that's the basics of that. That's really all that was, honestly. And then in the directory for video player, I said it's auto resizing and it locks the aspect ratio. I'm not 100% sure if I want that, but I think it's fine to just have it lock the aspect ratio. Now let's look through some of these commits here, unfortunately, because I feel like some of these overlap. Video frame preview, what does that mean? Is that the... Oh yeah, that's something else. We'll get there. No spoilers. The line return here, though, is that part of... No. Maybe this was part of the issue? I'm trying to find... There's an issue here. Customize if scrollable. No, that we just did. Only update size on first play. That was one of the issues. Right, I had it on playing, and I'd forgot this. We fixed this already, because I noticed it this time. But this is wrong. Instead of playing, it should be only on the first play that it triggers this resize. I don't want it to trigger every time you press pause and play, because that's what was happening in a test after I noticed. So we caught those two mistakes. Update width on rename also as on key down. No, that's something else. Okay, cool. So that was the basics for this auto resize video on play. Just, yeah, on first play, I should say. So that's, again, part of the video player. Commit that one. And what's next? So next is another cool one. Next, we're going to get to the video frame preview. That's where we have the thumbnails, I believe. Yeah. So let's apply this patch here. Jump back into the code. Let me just make sure this is what I think it is. Yes, this is. So this gets extensive here. But the basics of it. So I've switched to this logic here of new file. So for video file extension, same way in that we have the image file extension where we have known images, we have known videos. Now the reason I'm doing that is here when we're trying to get the shortcut image, before I was doing this logic where we check if it's an image and we make a photo, and now what I've added is a video one. So if it's a video type, I actually load the video and get the little icon based on that. And let's just take a peek at it before we look at the code and see. So there we go. So you see there was an icon there for that one, and there's the little bunny one. And if let me try my example one here. Look at that, even for my own video. Here, that's a video of me. And as you see there, this is a little shortcut of me as well. So let's just quickly see if there's any patches to that one, because even that one had some mistakes. I feel like these are follow-up, so I should almost apply both of these at the same time. Finish making video thumbs dynamic. Yeah, let's finish it. That's a good idea. I think this, because this spanned a couple days, I think that might have been why I partially finished it, but I'm not a fan of that move. Was there any other ones here? Simpler line return, no. Base context. We'll save some of these, but those two were, oh wait, they don't even apply to each other. Patch failed. So my patch failed. Where were we? We're here. Let's just start there, and then we'll figure out why the patch failed later. Video frame preview. What did I do? So first off, one observation I had is that Windows seems to preview from around the third second, sorry. This might have been even, I was thinking maybe, I wonder if what made more sense, the third second or the 100th millisecond? Not millisecond, is it? Yeah, I'm not sure. It seemed like 3 seconds was about the right preview. Anyways, let's move on to the code. I've already skipped past it twice. So I create an element, a video element. So I have to read the file first. I have to read the whole video. That's one of the downsides of this. I set the generic icon first for a video player, which is just VLC. Then I read the file. I create a video element. I set the video element's time before I've done anything else to it. I set it to the third second. And then I add an event listener on the loaded data for the video element. And then when it loads, I actually make a canvas element to get even more fancy. And then I take its context and I draw the video frame directly onto that canvas. And then I take the canvas in blob form, and with the blob, I create an object URL, and I pass that as the image. So that's the event. And then what triggers it, I set the source here to be a buffer URL of the original video. And then I just say load instead of play. The load kicks in loaded data. We're at the 3 second mark on the video frame. When we draw it to the canvas, we convert that canvas to an image, and then we use that as a thumbnail. So that's the basics of that one. Yeah, it's a pretty simple one, actually. I mean, it doesn't look that simple, but the basic idea behind it is that this video element can load the video, and then I just grab the frame and put it on a canvas so that I can turn it into an image that I can use. It's kind of a weird way to have to do it that way, but I wanted to recreate it. I didn't even, from a performance consideration, it's probably not ideal, but from a feature consideration, it's, you know, it's necessary. I felt. So let's take this commit again. Something was wrong here in that this commit didn't apply, so something's a little off on it. Let's figure out together what it is. Probably something I changed earlier made them slightly out of sync. So this is it here. So it's saying the file entry function on line 134. Is that... I'm not really sure what it's suggesting here. Functions? Was that this? Even? Functions. Here. I don't remember. I don't understand why it wouldn't patch this. Patch does not apply. Really? How could that be? Where does it not apply? I feel like all these changes are applicable. Well, let's just remove this piece so that it isn't, so that we can apply the rest. Because, oh, I think it's, no, I actually have no idea what the problem is. Let's just do the patches one at a time. So how do I remove a patch? I think it's as simple as just deleting this piece here. There we go. So if we assume the original message was correct, file entry functions wasn't copied. So that is literally just this. Oh no, there's two pieces to it. Okay, we'll just dig into that ourselves. Well, this first line seems relevant enough. Simply pasting that there. And then this next line is here. I'm not sure what it thinks changed as to why it didn't apply that. But we've applied it ourselves. So let's look through those three changes now. And this was in regards to finishing up the video thumbnail. So what was missing from the video thumbnail? Let's figure that out. So in the file entry, oh yes, this was for the, so now that we have the dynamic icons, we don't want them to show as the title bar icon or the taskbar entry icon. So in the same way that we had that logic to say if it's a dynamic image, don't show the icon. Now I just switched that to be a variable called isDynamicIcon. And if it's an image extension or a video extension, then don't use that as the title bar. Just use the processor icon. The process icon, sorry. That part was missing. This part here was for the default file viewer. I'm not 100% sure when this scenario occurs. I think it's mostly for unknown file extensions. But it doesn't hurt to have this here. I have a catch-all for photos. I have the catch-all for video. That if somehow it gets to this point, yeah, I don't know when this would occur. Actually, sorry, I think this is now this will occur because of this change here. So I removed these video extensions the same way that there's no picture extensions here. These video ones seemed unnecessary. It's like 10 different things that all load the same video, that all load the same process. So I've gotten rid of them here and I've moved it to this one catch-all that says, hey, any video extensions, just play them in the video player. And same here for the shortcut extension. So if it's a shortcut to a video, loop through the shortcut logic and get the thumbnail icon instead of just showing the generic thing. So those were the pieces that were missing from that video frame preview. And this is part of the video player, honestly. I mean, no, it's not. So let's just leave it there. It's actually not part of the video player, not really connected in any way. Okay, so we've got that one done. Simpler line return. Yes, I think this was a little more succinct. Refactor one of several on this function. And I like refactors, actually. Usually makes me rethink the way I've written it completely. Simpler line return. Now before I had the lines here, I moved them up to here because there's already one line. And now instead of saying return one or length, I just always return the length. Either you add to the length or not, but either it's one or more than one, depending on how this goes. Very minor refactor. Like I said, there's a few more coming. Base context options and fixed video frame size. So I think the video frame size is actually another piece that I was missing from the canvas work I did. Unfortunately, that git commit message sounds like another slightly catch-all message. So let's see if we can break that apart too into the two pieces, but possibly not if it's just one file. Let's see here for constants. Right, so I've decided to use this this context thing more often. If you remember, I was saying this is a little more performant when you're doing get context to say, I don't need transparency and don't synchronize to the DOM. Allow it to be desynchronized. So I moved this to be a constant, and I've decided to use these options wherever I'm calling context, which wasn't too many places. But here I was. Here I was actually already using it. So I was already using it pretty much in the two places. Actually, here I wasn't using it, so now I am. And then was there one other place? Yeah, here I was using it, and it's replaced, and now here I'm also using it. So 3 places I call get context. Now I'm using these generic options that are a little more performant. And one piece I was missing from the canvas, from the sizing, when I was doing draw image at the canvas size, the canvas started at some generic size, like 340 by 200 or something. Really, it should have been based on the video height and the video width. And those are known from the video element here, actually. So I set the canvas height to the video height, the canvas width, video width. And when I do the draw image, I also use those same ones. Actually, I probably could use canvas here, I guess. Let's not mess with it, though. Let's just, video, you know, same thing. What works, works. And I didn't need this new line here, so I removed it. That's it. That's minor. Base context options plus fixed video frame size. Even though they're not related, they're too close to untangle, and they're minor enough to not care. As far as commits go. What's next? This I already fixed. These if scrollable, hide scrolling. We did that. Only update size on first play. We actually already did that too. And that dependency we did as well. Update width on rename also. Right. So this is where I was saying when you go to rename, it's still too wide. It should be closer to the size of the word my PC at this point. And I've also tried to make it a little less twitchy. Let's see if we can see the twitchiness here. Let me try to rename it. So if I go X, 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 if I make it small. Actually, yeah, the twitchiness is completely not noticeable right now. But once I start doing width, I think it becomes a little noticeable. Let's just see. So I'm going to apply another patch. Like so. Copy the name of this one here. What are the things I did? So for the rename, let's just go with this first. So that function, remember the get line count. I've switched it now to be called get text wrap data, in which I return the lines and I return the width count, the total width. So the width is basically, did it go over max width? If it went over max width, then it's max width. But if it didn't, I want to know the width so I can make the box smaller. And then I take the lines because this is actually future proofing for that truncate logic. I want the lines because I want to know for when I'm going to truncate. Okay, give me the first two lines, and then I'll take the last line and I'll remove a little bit so I can do dot dot dot. That's the basics of what I want to do. But I'll do that's another one. So now I've converted this command to be a little more useful though. Instead of inlining this, I split this out. So this is the total width here, based on the width of all the text. So and then if total width is greater, then we go in here, we go deeper, and we check line width on a per line basis to do the calc. And then when it comes time to return, we return either the maximum width or the total width, whichever number is smaller. And that'll be the width. Now on the rename side, I switched it from being called update rows to be called update dimensions, because now it also does the width. I moved this text padding logic so that it could be used twice. So if you remember before, we had this rename padding times 2. Now I call it text padding, and I do the rename padding times 2, and I do plus 2. Now this is a little bit of a magic number. I'm not a huge fan of that, but the plus 2 is that thing I was telling you about earlier, where on the text in the DOM, there's one line on either side of text that I was noticing. And so that's why I added that to get rid of the fact that it wasn't quite resized, that the measured text I was getting, the numbers weren't quite perfect. Although they're still not perfect, to be honest. And then not much else changed. Now instead of going lines, I go lines.length.toString. And then I add a second attribute here where I set the width. So style is the width of the width that I get back from the wrap data plus the padding. That's it. Rounded up. Math seal. And then I also added on key down that it'll redo the measurements. Because if it was doing it on key up, sometimes the width on, like if you first press down, the text updates visually to you, but that doesn't trigger key up. Key up is when you let go. So if the text visually updates and it didn't resize properly, it looked weird. But like I said, on key down, the value isn't the value of the additional key yet. That happens on key up. So what I've done here is I've kept the logic that already existed where it said if it's enter key, save, rename, I still got that. Enter, save, rename. But then I go, if the key length is one length and the target's still a text area, so I can get the value from it. Oh, I need to drink some water, sorry. Oh, cheers. So if key length is 1, then it's going to be a letter. Because typically key, if it's like backspace or delete or anything special, key will be a word. But if it's just one length, then my thinking currently is that that means it's a letter or space. So I take the current value plus that additional thing, and then I do a measurement update again. So it's a lot of measurement updates, but at the same time, it's only when you're renaming. So it's not like it's happening all the time when you're on the site. So let's check out how that looks. So now when I go rename, so you see now the width is proper. So if I say my PC, so there we go. So it's much, I'll zoom in a little bit here for the example. So it's this box here. So you see it twitching a little bit. There's a little bit of huff from it and puff. But for the most part, it's staying decently dynamic. It's not perfect. But yeah, for the most part, it's not twitchy anymore. So I'll reset our zoom level back to normal. So update width on rename plus key down. I'll say update rename width on key down / up. There we go. So there's another cool feature. And what else? Only update on the first play, update when rename. Reuse context. This was an efficiency one that I wanted to do. This is once again getting into that line, the get the text wrap data, whatever that function's called now. It changes names occasionally. Let's apply that one here. I was pretty proud of this one too. I mean, it's a minor one. Actually, there's no reason to be proud of it. Let me take that back. But it's just an attempt to optimize, you know. I'm proud about that, I guess. It's like, hey, let's see if I can make it a little bit better. Maybe I made it worse. Who knows? So I changed so it's still called get text wrap data. I think. Yeah. But I've also created this function called measure text that's kind of does the meat and potatoes of it. So now get text wrap data is pretty simple. It still has that. Wait, what is it doing here? Okay, it actually didn't change very much. The only thing that really changed was the measure text. Instead of going context.measure text and getting it from this context stuff I made, I've instead converted them. I've made a measure text function that can reuse previous contexts and canvases. So all it does, so for measure text, first thing it does is get the font, and then I actually store which canvas I have based on the font, because that's all I set in the canvas. So that's what's relevant to doing a measure text. Is like, okay, your canvas is set for this font. Okay, I'll use you for measuring things that need that font. So I got a record here with a string that's the font, and the canvas 2D, which is the value. So if it doesn't exist, then it's the same code as before. I create the canvas again. I create the context again. I set the font, and then I update that record to say, for this font, always use this context now for this instance of the app. And then I just return the measured text. I take that context dot measure text, and that's it. So that's just my idea of how to reuse it. Perhaps it's more efficient. I don't know. I haven't done a benchmark. One day, one step at a time. No point benchmarking something I'm going to change 1,000 times more still. I change it so often. So here's another cool one I did. I actually forgot I did this. Is a shortcut icon. I've added shortcut icon. And not only the shortcut icon, but the whole idea of sub icons, basically. So an icon overlay. Let's add this one, this patch, which is 5F. Oh no, error patch again in file functions. It hates that file. All right, let's once again see what it's talking about here. Huh. The changes are slightly more big this time, but that's okay. We can just get them from the diff in GitHub, not GitLab, sorry. All right, we'll apply that. There we go. So that's the same as last time. We applied most of the patch, but not all of it. We didn't apply this piece here, so we'll just do that ourselves. I'm going to copy the name. I'm going to go into the file functions that it was talking about, which was in the file entry, was it? Yeah. Okay, so we actually need to add a few things, darn it. Let's go find that. Oh man, there's several instances of that. Oh no, there's not. There's not that many. There's this one here. So first thing we need to... I wish I could just do the patch without having to explain this. Let me just don't look for a second. Don't look at me. I'm just going to apply these few changes because then we can look at it from a, 10 miles up kind of thing. I think that's what we need to do. Or I'm just copy pasting the changes as I see them in the git change, the git commit, because I want to apply them and then we go through them. I'm just missing one change. Here it is right here. There, I think that was it. Okay, so let's step back. Let's step back. So there's the shortcut icon. So I noticed that there's a shortcut icon, but it's actually the 32 by 32 pixel version of the icon, but applied to a 48 by 48 icon. And the smaller one is indeed the 16 by 16 one. So these, I got the base icons. Now, because the icon overlay is like, let's get to the part where I do the icon overlay here. Where is that? Here. So before it was just outputting an icon, the icon for the file entry. And now what it does is it has the icon plus a concept called sub icons, which can be an array of icons. So it makes those into one big array here, and then it goes through them and just makes the icon. So it makes one image after another. And in the case of the moving, that I only apply that to the base icon. So if the icon equals this icon here within the entries, then we also do work on the moving logic that can be true. And what moving does is when you cut something or you're going to move an icon, you put it in the cut state, and then it goes like slightly opaque, transparent. But the shortcut icon does not go opaque, I noticed in Windows. So that's what this logic here allows. When you cut something, the shortcut will look like it's in cut mode, but the shortcut icon will stay clear. Here is that function update. So get info with extension. That is when I create this sub icon array that's empty to start. And it's what I pass into the callback when I'm updating it. Now, if we know it's a shortcut, we're going to push in the shortcut icon as the sub icon. And that's currently all I do right now. In the future, I may add another sub icon for other scenarios, but currently it's just the shortcut sub icon that I focus on. And then that gets returned. And it's applied here. It's in the type too that optionally there can be the sub icons. Now, as you remember here, it like dumps image. So in CSS, what I set is that for image, if it's not the first one, then set the position absolute. So the first one goes here, and if you don't have this, then the next one goes here and here and here and here. But what I say is all subsequent ones are positioned at the same spot. So they overlay each other. So then the last piece is within the file entry itself when it goes to display. No, wait, we already did that. Right. So yeah, we get sub icons here from the use file info. Really? Ah, right, because set info is where everything's happening. So we don't see anything else here, but set info sets it when it gets passed along from the function here where it's relevant, which is the get info with extension. So let's take a peek. So there we go. So as you can see, the shortcuts have shortcut extensions. Let me clear all the other stuff here. Pretty much all these show us shortcuts. I'm going to fix this later to maybe not have my PC be a shortcut, because in Windows it doesn't really act like a shortcut. So as an example here, let's take this one here. We'll right click and press create shortcut and put it on our desktop. And as you see, the document has a shortcut. Now I'm noticing here that it's the wrong shortcut icon. Okay, that's something to follow up on too. So a shortcut to a folder is not showing the right icon. Folder shortcut is not using desktop.ini icon. That's follow-up for another day. Anyways, the basics of the shortcut icon work, so that looks clean enough. That looks pretty much just like how it looks on Windows. And like I said, we'll work on making it more simple. Now, one thing I'm gonna fix. I have another commit, I think, to fix it. Let's see how complicated it is. Yeah, we'll do it in another commit here. It's the last commit. But one issue with what I've done, if you see here for the start menu, it added the icon to every one of them. Obviously, that's not correct. So I need to have an exception to that, which we'll add in the next commit here. So we added the shortcut sub icon. And now let's do that last commit where we allow shortcuts to not show in some scenarios. Allow hiding shortcut icons for a folder. I was thinking of doing this for the desktop in general, but I don't think I like that idea. I need to have special system shortcuts. That's, I think, a future episode. I'm going to have system shortcuts. I should probably add that to the next stream, actually. System shortcut for my PC. Specifically, that shortcut is a special shortcut. For a few reasons, too. Actually, from a sorting point of view, too, I'd like it to be at the top more often than it is. Okay, so this is the last one here. Allow hiding shortcuts for the folder. I've also moved the shortcut icon to a constant. So a few of these changes are just to change it to a constant. Here in the file entry props, I have hide shortcut icon. And when we get the sub icons, now I make filtered sub icons. That if hide shortcut icon is there, I filter out the shortcut icon. Now I don't just not show sub icons because we might have a shortcut that has sub icons, other sub icons. I don't know. Who knows how far we'll go with the sub icon idea. But the basics is I just didn't want to show the shortcut piece of it. That being said, though, I think shortcut icon was broken slightly. Or sorry, sub icon was not correct completely for the file entry, now that I think about it. Maybe we can fix that really quick. Yeah, here. So here in start menu, I've said hide shortcut icons. But what if we disable that for a second and I go back? This is rendering wrong. It should be that same kind of idea, that position thing. So let's just see, because there's two styled file entries. There's the one for the list and there's the one for the icons. Here's the one for the icon view. But for the list view, let's see if we can do the same thing. Oh man, there's almost nothing here. Let's see how that works. Oh, that was it. That was all it needed. Okay, so that looks good. That's how a mini shortcut icon should look. I don't want them in the start menu, but that's how it should have looked. So let's just make this a little more simple because it's the only case. There we go. So that's a little shortcut fix there for the start menu one. But at the same time, we're going to hide shortcuts for the start menu. So if we apply that now, you see they're just completely gone. And that's because of the logic we had here, where we pass hide shortcut and then we filter it out here, as I mentioned. Allow hiding shortcut icons for folder. Yes. Can I make a note that I fixed this? Let's fix this. Actually, let's stage everything except this. So that was the allow hiding shortcut. And then fix list view sub icon overlay. That'll be this piece here. So for the list view, also position absolute for the not first image. There we go. Okay, so I feel like we added quite a bit today. We got drag and drop. We got new icons for things. We got custom icons for these. We got custom icons for the title bars. We got drag and drop. I don't know if I mentioned. The video player, the video shortcut icons for the video player, like our own personal little VLC looking player. A lot of cool stuff. So, what other? I think that's it. I think that's all we had for this week. So, that's it. Thanks for tuning in. 2 hours, 20-ish minutes or so. It's much appreciated if you stayed this long. Thank you to Stephen Rose and Green Coder for the comments. Hope I answered them. If you like this video, please throw me a like. If you want to motivate me, if you support the project, any kind of thing like that, any reason, any positive feelings you have, can you turn those into likes and subscribes? It would help me out. I'd appreciate it. Other than that, yeah, thanks for checking out another stream. I'll see everyone in the next one. Bye.